Joe has been watching all of the no-FAP videos. He keeps trying all the different tips. He's really trying this time. He doesn't want it to happen again. He tries all of them out and he relapses. And then he goes back. And then, come on, what is it? Oh, if I just try this thing, come on. And he relapses. Joe keeps going through these cycles of relapsing, and it's getting really frustrating. He just doesn't know what to do. Alexander has full control of when he decides to ejaculate, who with, wherever. For he, in his younger years, developed a deep understanding of how it occurs, and he mastered all the principles necessary to have full control over his own body. Okay, so I've always been sort of just fapping every single day. And I guess it's just part of being maybe a teenager, I guess, but it's still just, it was always annoying, when I knew that it was probably weakening me and probably isn't good for me as well. Like, I would literally, I'd wake up, like, so tired it's hard for me to even open my eyes, see the sun creeping in through the window. And I just been laying in bed, and I just lay there for long enough for me to literally just start trying to fap. And then I'd try to fap, but I didn't even have any my it wasn't even hard, bro. Like, it was this sort of weird soft, it was almost less, it's just so unsoft. And I would genuinely lay there for 25 minutes with my fist almost banging against it, hitting my own balls. I would have ball ache throughout the rest of the day, and I'd literally just be sitting there, basically just hitting it for 20 minutes straight, and then eventually it would get like the tiniest bit hard, and then I'd just start, and after about 10 seconds, I'd get a few drops out. And then I would literally arrive at school 15 minutes late because I was so tired that morning. And I would literally do that every single day. And that was literally my life. And I hated it every single morning. I just felt worse and worse. I just didn't understand why I did it. And then as the years went on, I kept doing it, and I always just saw it as, oh, well, mate, if I could just, I don't know, I just thought eventually, I had this idea of eventually, if I just keep trying to not do it, it will stop. And I just kept going through that, if I just keep trying to not do it, it'll stop. If I just keep trying to not do it, it'll stop. And it never did. Until I actually put some implementation in. And I read Atomic Habits, and I don't think that helped me that much, actually. Honestly, I got 3 things out of that book. But and I actually started to implement some stuff and come up with ideas and try and work my way out of the sort of fapping rabbit hole that I had dug myself into. And eventually I managed to do it, bro. I haven't fapped in a week, so that's progress at least. No, I've managed to do pretty well, but I've gone a few weeks ago. I went 3 weeks. I've had some sort of personal life issues recently, so I was fapping a bit more this month. But I'm not too bothered about that because it's very rare it happens. So it's So what I want to cover in this video is how it actually works. And this book I've got next to me really it taught me this morning, and I just want to sort of go over it with you because I think this makes so much more sense. So this book right here, oh, I just have it right here, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's really good, and what he does, he breaks down a habit. So fapping is a habit, right? It's a bad habit that we want to break, and he breaks down habits into 4 laws, 4 stages, which is literally cue, craving, response, reward. So cue is like you have some sort of cue for the habit. So like if I see my water bottle, that's a cue to drink water, right? And then craving is sort of, you want to drink the water. You really, really want it, or you want to eat that bag of Doritos, or you just want it for some reason, right? And the response is what you do with that craving. So maybe my response is to pick up the water bottle, maybe your response is to buy the crisps, and then the reward is the crisps or to drink the water, and then you get the reward of no longer being thirsty. So that's what a habit is. It always goes through those 4 stages. And I literally read this entire book, and I could not figure out the cue, craving, response, reward for fapping. I just couldn't figure it out. Like honestly, it feels pretty stupid now because this book, another book I've got next to me, helped me with figuring out how it works. Like I kind of worked it out by myself, but it was also sort of handed to me, so it was it's sort of yeah. But I can actually tell you it now that I've actually found it. It goes like this, right? So the cue for fapping is genital stimulation. So maybe you feel pretty good, and you just want to do it. Just you can even the tiniest amount, you'll still do it, right? The craving is the mental fantasy that you create in your head. So you get the genital stimulation, and then you create the mental fantasy, right? You create the mental fantasy of this, the way I like to see it is there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either do it in your head, or you can do it on your laptop, on the hub or something. But you always create the mental fantasy somehow, right? You can't just do it without it. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's the craving. And then the response is the building up of tension. So you sitting there jacking off, right? The mental fantasy getting more and more intense, whatever that is, right? If it's the videos or the images or whatever you're looking at, or the thing you've got in your head, or whatever it is, it's that getting more and more intense, and you jacking off harder and harder and harder, and just that build up of tension. And then the reward for that is the ejaculation, right? The prolactin increase and all that. The reward for that is the dam breaking and all of your tension going away. That's the reward, right? And that's how it works. Which means we can actually talk about this now, right? Before this, we weren't able to talk about it. We just had this sort of vague tips to help with certain things. Now we've actually got a system. I literally discovered this today as well, so I'm really happy about this. The cue. How do you get rid of genital stimulation? The only way to do that is to either lower your testosterone and basically become infertile. Not just infertile, but your dick doesn't work. If it doesn't even work, well, yeah, sure, you'll be on NoFap full time. But let me guess, you don't want to do that because that's just ridiculous. No one's. I don't. If you're really that serious, maybe, but it's there's no point really. So that is one thing you can do, but basically we can't really do that, right? It's just pointless. If you can get your testosterone to 0, but we're not going to do that because the amount of health risks to that, bro. So that is that's why I think so many people struggle with NoFap, because the cue is constant, right? Right? You'll never stop getting genital stimulation. You'll always get genital stimulation, right? You'll always feel a bit horny every now and then, right? You'll always have it, bro. Which means you've got to learn how to deal with it, and you can't get rid of it. It's bags of crisps. You can just stop having bags of crisps, right? You can just if you just get rid of all of the bags of crisps, you can just stop having the bags of crisps. But when it's a part of your body, it's a bit harder, bro. Thanks. Yeah. So, and then the second step is the craving. Obviously, the mental fantasy. this and the build-up attention are things that we can actually change, right? And there's a few things we can do with the reward, which means we actually know what we can do. Honestly, most YouTubers work on the mental fantasy. So most YouTubers talk about, okay, so you've got the cue of genital stimulation. Okay, I'm going to tell you what to do to stop doing this mental fantasy. So I've talked about this a bit in the past. So people will say, like, don't go on the hub, because when the mental fantasy is in your own head, you can control it. When it's on the hub, it's like they'll just do whatever they want, right? They'll take you wherever they want to go. You ain't got no control there. So in your head is a lot better. You have so much more control, and it's a lot easier. So that's one thing people talk about a lot. But basically, the way I see it, is most YouTubers talk about the mental fantasy aspect of it, right? Most YouTubers talk about NoFap is feeling genital stimulation and deciding not to jack off. But that's the wrong way of thinking about it. Instead of thinking about it like, okay, so I feel like the genital stimulation, but I'm not going to jack off. Instead of thinking about it like that, instead think about it like this. I feel the genital stimulation, but I'm not going to create a mental fantasy. That's what you should be thinking about, right? It's not about the jacking off, it's about the mental fantasy. That's the next step. It's not the actual jacking off, that's the third step. The second step is actually the mental fantasy first. So what we do is, like, if you want to do that, when you feel horny, try and aim to not create a mental fantasy inside of your own head. Like the way I see it, most NoFap users just talk about the mental fantasy. They're always talking about, oh, stop doing this and stop going on the hub because they'll create mental fantasies, and oh, like oh my god, we live in like a sexualized culture, and like there's mental fantasies everywhere, and like it's all mental fantasy, right? What I've tried to do on my channel so far is I've tried to talk about the third one, which is the building up of tension. And I think YouTubers don't talk about this enough. I don't think YouTubers even talk about this, like, at all. Like, after you've created the mental fantasy, how do you stop the build-up of tension, which is the last step before you ejaculate? Like this book right here, it teaches you all about it, mate, and it's so good. But it's honestly taught me everything I know about this whole building up of tension. Building up of tension is, you've got the genital stimulation, you've got the mental fantasy. Okay, now I'm gonna start jacking off. So you're jacking off, right? And I'm like, yeah. So you're jacking off, right? And then what you do is you release the tension. If you can release the tension while you're jacking off, you can go 2.5 hours without ejaculating. Possibly even more. Okay, I'm pretty annoyed at this, but I'm going to be honest with you, bro, because I think honesty is a good thing. Yesterday, I was literally jacking off for 2.5 hours straight. And I hate that. I could have gotten so much more work done, but I was tired and I decided to do that instead. And it really annoyed me. It's part of my reason for making this video, honestly, because it's part of my reason for thinking about this earlier, bro, because I was just so annoyed. And that's just a ridiculous amount of time. But the point I'm trying to make is, I went 2.5 hours straight, and the entire time I was releasing my tension. So, like, there are jokes like, oh, you can only last 12 seconds, bro. What that means is you've just got like such high tension that only takes a slight tip for your dam to break. Tension is like a dam breaking. So the less tension you have right now, the longer you can last before ejaculating. It's literally as simple as that. When you're jacking off, you're building up the tension. But guess what also builds up the same amount of tension? Because, like, it's like, this is how your body works, right? Your body isn't like, there isn't like different types of tension. There's just one tension. Jacking off increases that tension. Things that also increase that same tension are things like bad posture. I just immediately changed it. And like, I'm trying to think. Focusing on yourself and like all these different things, right? I think not living to your purpose. All of this stuff all of this stuff builds up your tension throughout the day. And depending on how much tension you've already got inside of your dam, that's going to start to break your dam that much. And just a slight tip and your dam breaks. That's why, like, sometimes when you don't jack off for a few days, it's like you jack off within like 10 seconds. Like, that's why it happens, bro. Because you've just spent, like, what was it, 10 days? Yeah, you've just spent 10 days building up all of that tension, and then the dam breaks anyway. Because you didn't release it for any other means. And when you do that, you live this sort of life, and it's just not good, bro. That's why, bro. So I truly believe the trick to NoFap, the secret to NoFap, is literally just to have no tension in your body when you're jacking off, and to have no mental fantasies. Like, not have no mental fantasies, but have full control over your mental fantasies. And I'm gonna pay a lot more attention to the second one maybe from now on, because I've focused a lot of my attention on the tension part of it. And I think most of our other YouTubers focus on the mental fantasy part of it and ignore the tension part of it. If you can have both, I think that's the trick, to have both. I'm gonna be honest, bro. Like, I spent, like, the other month, I went 3 weeks without doing it once. Right? But the entire time, I was actually doing it, but I just never went the full way. Honestly, like that's actually, like, I would literally do it every single day. And this isn't some like dumb excuse to, like, oh, you can have both, bro. Like, that's just dumb. But I went 3 weeks without doing it once, but I was still doing it every single day. I basically had no control over. I didn't have any control over the mental fantasy, but I had full control over the tension. And all you need is control over one of these, and you basically rarely do it. If you have control over both, I think that's the secret to never doing it again. Like, genuinely, I think that's the secret. Because I've been working so hard on having so little tension in my body, I was able to go 3 weeks without doing it once, while at the same time, like, jacking off every day, but just not going the full way. So I would have the genital stimulation, I had the mental fantasy, and then I would start building up the tension. But I would sort of do this, like, my dam was like here, and it would sort of go like this, like, while I was jacking off. It would sort of go like this. So like, when it goes like this, you jack off, right? And my tension was going like this. So, like, I would be jacking off, my tension was rising, and then I'd literally lower it. I'd purposefully lower it while I was doing it. And what I want to do now is I want to get rid of the mental fantasy as well, because that, like if I can get rid of that as well, I'll never have problems again, bro. Like, I think that's the real secret right there. And I think YouTubers have so overlooked the tension part of this, bro. They have so overlooked it, because, like, I've never heard a video like this talking about, oh, like, bro, just don't build up the tension. Like, I've never heard anyone talk about that. But I hear a lot of people saying, oh, just don't go on the hub, bro, and just, it's willpower, mate. Like, yeah, it is actually kind of willpower, but, like, that's only, like, one aspect of, like, the bigger puzzle, right? And I think it's really important that you understand that it's not the willpower that stops you from jacking off. It's the willpower that stops you from creating the mental fantasy. And it's the willpower that stops you going from mental fantasy to jacking off. And it's the willpower that stops you from going from jacking off to ejaculation. So, yeah. So willpower will obviously help you with most habits, but, you know, it's sort of like, yeah, do it how you want, bro. So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to go with in this video. I hope that helped. And then obviously the last one is ejaculation, which is you've completely finished. So this guy, James Clear, recommends that you make it painful when you have a reward that you don't want, so like ejaculation, you make that painful. I tried this back in November. Nah. Nah. If I look back on like how my fapping was last November, it was trash. Like I made no progress, so I don't think that works. I don't think it works. And we're gonna ignore that. But rewards, how could you? I think just a good way is to just not be angry when you ejaculate, and instead just think of it as like a learning lesson, and like actually take that seriously, bro. Like get out your journal and actually write down, why did I do that? How could I stop doing that? So how do I? Why did I do that? And how did I do that? And what were the emotions that went through? What was I struggling with the most? Was it the mental fantasy or the tension? What do you think I was struggling with the most? What that means is, like, were you struggling to not think of women? Or were you struggling with not being able to stop jacking off? That's literally all I'm asking, bro. Which one do you struggle with most? That's actually a really good question. Do you struggle with not being able to stop thinking about women? Or do you struggle with not being able to stop jacking off? Because they're different things, right? Like the physical act of like jacking off, or the physical act of thinking about having some sort of mental fantasy about like being trying to think about women, bro. Like I just thought Queen Elizabeth. That's hilarious. But I don't know, like some women, right? But what do you struggle with the most? Because I struggle with both, but I'd say I've always struggled with the building up tension, the sort of I've always struggled with not jacking off the most. I've always struggled with that the most, so I'm just focusing on that for me, and I've actually think I've managed to get to a really good level of that. But I also struggle with the mental fantasy, so I'm going to work on that as well. And I'm going to update you in the next few days as I learn about this, because I think it's going to be sick. But I hope that helped. But like, if you can answer that question, I'm going to help you with the building up tension. So if you struggle with jacking off and not being able to stop, I'm going to help you mainly with that at this point in time. And in the future, I'll help you with stop thinking about women so much. Because I think the third one is the thing that guys struggle with more. It just seems, although you decide, like honestly, bro, if you've come to the end of this video, please tell me in the comments. And this ain't some trick to get more like an analytic metric, whatever. I don't think comments even help YouTube videos anyway. So, like, if you can literally just tell me, because, like, bro, like I really want to know which one you struggle with most. It would be like, it would honestly help me so much for me to help you as well. Like, if you honestly struggle with thinking about women too much more than not being able to jack off, then please tell me that, because I'll be able to help you so much more then. But I do think a combination of both is the ideal. But anyway, enough chit chat. My name is Sam. Our name is Seven. Fix your brokenness for your purpose, cause I love you. I can't. What the heck?